Hello and welcome back. In this particular video, we're going to be talking about the Spring Bean lifecycle, and specifically, we're going to be talking about some annotations like PostConstruct and PreDesotry, and some interfaces like InitializingBean and DisposableBean. And also, we're going to be talking a little bit in depth about the @bean annotation and the way we can use our initialization and the destroy method by using the @bean annotation. Well, this is the first video of this series where we're going to be talking about the Spring Bean lifecycle. Well, I already have a video on Spring Bean lifecycle on my channel, but the reason for making this series is you might be needing some resources to prepare for your Spring and Spring Boot interviews. And this is one of the top most asked question in any Spring or Spring Boot interview. Before a Spring Bean gets created and before it gets delivered to the developer for use, it goes through some phases. It goes through a life cycle. And we're going to be talking about each phases of the Spring Bean life cycle in this series of video. But in this video, let's just get started first and let's just understand the initialization methods in detail. My name is Vilas. You're watching Selenium Express. If you're enjoying this series of videos on Spring, make sure to give a thumbs up and do subscribe to the channel for the further updates. I'll see you in the video. So basically we're going to start talking about the Bean life cycle today. And in the last session, we spoke about the hour interface. If you haven't attended that session, not a problem. So we're going to be talking some more things, and I will not involve the hour interfaces in this lesson, but I will be involving some more components. So this session is obviously going to build your foundation more, and obviously you'll be feel super confident the way your container and your beans basically gets created and is basically get to the action. Okay, so first of all, let's start just let's just start creating a project, and I'll just copy one of my previous project. Maybe I'll just copy this project, and I'm going to be saying it Bean lifecycle hands-on, and I'll be using a couple other things as well. Bean lifecycle hands-on. And let me just go to the new project that I have created called Bean Lifecycle Hands-on right here. And let me just go inside this and let's just copy all the things, delete all the things, and let's just get started. So let me just mute everybody. Aditi, muting you. Okay. No problem, Aditi. Just, I think you just joined. So basically Bean lifecycle hands-on, I have this afterJava class. Just let me make it ready for a moment. Let me just close, delete everything. I don't have anything over here in my afterJava, and I have an app config class, and I think it does not have any code as well. It's just a application config class with a add component scan and a add configuration annotation. So let's just get started creating a new class right now. So I'll go to right over here and start creating a new bean or a new component over here. And this component name, let me just make it teacher or something. And this is going to be a bean for me. And in this class, let's say I'll make it a bean right now at component annotation. Now this teacher is a bean. Let's say I have a constructor here. So I have a teacher constructor. And let's say that, this teacher has a simple sysout here. Sysout, and it says teacher is initializing, and maybe I have a method here called public void teach. Okay, it's a simple API method that I have. It just says sysout teaching. Okay, now here from our story begins. Let's say right now what I want, let's say this is a component, and obviously I have an app config class which scans for all my component. It'll make and it'll create a bean of the teacher. The constructor will be invoked first, and that's called the bean initialization. Then if there will be any dependency for teacher is there, that will be set. For now, there is no dependency here, so the setter and the constructor, the setter methods are not there. But yeah, if there would have any dependency, that would have been set. after the bean creation. So for now, there is no dependency here. So the teacher bean will be created. And once that created, I can ask that bean to the container and can call this teach method. So for now, I'll just do a simple thing. Let's say I'm creating my container right now here, application context container out of the app config file, and app config file basically scans for all my beans through the component scan, and this creates the teacher bean after scanning it. Everybody, I think, is aware about this. Now, if I run this, and obviously my teacher will be initialized in my console, and that's how my teacher constructor method got called, and this is what we call the bean creation. And obviously I can right now ask to the container that, hey container, if you can get me the bean of the teacher, so teacher.class, and I can call the teach method on top of that, and obviously the teacher teach method will be invoked through the object of the teacher that I got through this getBean method, right? So I think we are all okay so far. Now I want to tell you, I want to ask you something basically. Let's say inside the teacher class, okay, let's say after the bean is getting created, right after the constructor got invoked, if I want to do some work, okay, let's say I have a public void init method, okay, I have an initialization method. And what is the work of the initialization method of a particular component? Maybe it is going to do some initialization stuff for this component. And maybe for an example, if the teacher is using something, let's say there is a list here, let's say private list, list of string I have, okay, and let's say I have something called subjects, right? Now let's say this init method does what? It'll basically initialize this subject. So basically what I want, subjects is equal to new array list of subject, array list, okay, and array list of string, and let me just wrap it off with a diamond bracket. And right now, sorry, subjects, new array list, change the type of object. Subjects is here, is list of string type, new array list object I'm creating. Do I need to mention it's string here? I don't think so. What is the problem? Why I'm not able to initialize this over here? And here, yes?
You got the wrong list.
Sorry?
You got the wrong list.
Wrong list? Oh, okay. So let me just do a Control-Shift-O to fix the import. And now this looks fine, right? So my init method job is to initialize this subject. And the next thing is like, subjects. And I'll be, let's say I'll be adding some subjects here. Let's say subjects.add, and I'll say like, the subject that the teacher teach, let's say it is like, math and science. Okay, let's say a couple of subjects I'm adding here. Okay, now let's say we have this init method, and inside the teacher, let's say teaching, and I'll say like, I'll just print the subjects here. Okay, let's say subjects I'm printing here, or maybe teaching, and I can just hover on this subject right now. I can just do, so let's say I am having a for each loop. I'm looping over the subjects that I have. So I'm just taking the subjects here that the teacher teach, and I'll just say string subject. Okay, and I'm just looping it over, and I'm just printing the teaching over here. It's pretty simple so far. So I'm just going to print all the subject which is getting taught by the teacher. Now if I'll go to the app.java, and if I run this, then you know that like, I'll be getting a null pointer exception, because before the teach method, I need to make sure that I am invoking, like I need to invoke the init method by myself, because the teach method is going to be an API method. It is using this subject over here, and the subject is getting initialized right over here. So right now, that's why this few lines of code, basically the best thing I can do is whenever you have an init method, you move it after the variable, like so that some other developers, whenever they read, they will understand, okay, this is the initialization stuff which need to be done during the object creation. So what I want right now, whenever I'm calling the teach method, it is hovering on the subjects, and the subjects are null right now because the init method need to be invoked before the teach method will be called. So I have a couple of options. I can call this method by myself. I can go to the app.java and I can do the same thing, like, before I get the bean, I will call the, what do we call that? The init method first, then the teach method. Now what I want to do, I don't want to call that init method by myself. I want this method to be called by Spring. And I want this method to be called whenever the teacher object will be created by Spring and whenever the teacher dependency will be set. I also want this init method to be invoked by the container and to run it by itself just after the bean creation happens. So how can I do that? Like, I think most of you knows about it. So how can I achieve this? @PostConstruct is one option. Okay, let me go with that option first. There are a few options. I will be asking you everything. So I'll go to for @PostConstruct, I will not be able to write PostConstruct here because to use PostConstruct, I will be this is a Java annotation. This is not a Spring annotation. So what I got to do, I will go to Maven repo, and in the Maven repository, I will be basically finding out let's say javax.annotation, maybe this dependency, and I'll just do a search and go for the annotation API, go for 1.3.2, copy this, go to your pom.xml right here, and now I will be posting that dependency, Control-Shift-F, Control-S, and now I can go to the teacher and can do a control space, and I'm getting PostConstruct from javax.annotation. Now this will make sure that my init method will be invoked. So I can just do a sysout over here just to make sure that my init method is invoking. So init invoked through, let's say, PostConstruct annotation, right? Copy this and paste it over here. Okay, through PostConstruct. Now this, so what will happen whenever the teacher bean will be created, or whenever the teacher object will be created, first the constructor will be called, and right after the constructor got called, the PostConstruct method will be automatically got created before the container deliver the bean to you. Because right now what was happening? Previously this method was not getting executed. So Spring was just creating the object of teacher by invoking this constructor and was getting you that particular bean. So this object was not set. And that's why previously whenever we are running this line, we are getting a null pointer exception, because the bean that we are asking to the container, the teacher bean, that does not that basically did not run my init method. So now what I'm asking to my container that, hey container, I have a PostConstruct method. So create the object for this by invoking the constructor method, and right after you run the constructor method and before you deliver me the bean which is ready to use, make sure to invoke this init method as well. And with the init method has some special commands to initialize some of the things that I have in my component, and then I can invoke any of the API method on top of that, right? Now I can go to my app.java, and if I run this, I think this will work fine, right? So you can see right after the constructor get called, init method got invoked using the PostConstruct, and then I'm calling the API method here, which is basically whatever, like this API method, right? Let's say sysout, let's say, I'll just say API method called, and I'll just do like this. Maybe I'll just say start. Okay, and I'll just end it over here. Now this is one way to do the initialization stuff. Now I'm sure that if you have gone through the Spring core sessions, you should know some few more way to do or achieve the same thing. I'm going to ask you about it, but before that, let me run this application and let's see if my things are working fine and my API method starts. Before that, the PostConstructs got executed. Fine. Now, if I don't want to use the PostConstruct, basically the recommended way is always to go with the PostConstruct, because PostConstruct, if I'll hover on this is coming from javax.annotation. That means your code is not tightly coupled to Spring. So this is a Java annotation. So tomorrow, if you are not going to use Spring also, this code will still work. Okay, because it's some Java specific methods, but Spring anyhow works with the PostConstruct, okay, to do the initialization stuff. Fine. So it's basically, I think it's basically making sense. So if I will go to my keynote, it's happening like, can I just, just to, visualize the thing, because we're going to be bringing in some more components right now. So basically, if this is my container, and if this is my bean, let's say if this is my bean, before this bean is getting ready to use, what is the first thing which is happening? That is going to be the initialization. It is initializing, okay, by running the constructor. The next thing, the dependency is getting set, like the dependency injection is happening. I'm just writing di, and then what is after the dependency injection happens? Then what is happening? After the dependency injection happens, then the PostConstruct method is getting called, right? The initialization method is getting called, and then the bean is getting created, and this bean you are getting, which is ready to use whenever somebody asks for it. So this bean first get initialized, then the dependency is set, then the post constructor executed, then it goes to the container. Fine. The same way, any other way to do it, any other Spring way to do it. Let's say I will not use the post construct. Then how can you make it a initialization method, and how can you run this method or invoke this method before the bean gets created and delivered to you in order to use it? Any idea how to run this initialization method? Yes, please. Any other idea without post construct?
There is some interface I forgot to implement.
Yeah, initialization bean, correct?
Yes.
So basically, what Akhil is saying, Spring is having a interface called InitializingBean. I feel implements. 1 second, let me just try that. Is InitializingBean or something? InitializingBean maybe. In the InitializingBean, if I'll hover on this and add the unimplemented method, it has an unimplemented method. It has something called afterPropertyset. And if you go to the afterPropertyset, this method is it is the Spring way of initializing the init method. Now this method will be called right after the constructor get called. It will call right after the initial. The spelling, there is a typo here. So basically, right after the constructor gets called, right after the dependency gets set, the after property set. Okay, after you set the property, what do you mean by property set? This means dependency injection means you are setting the property, right? After this is like property set, right? Property set. Like just after the property set happens here, this method will be called. After property set method will be called, and if this is going to be called, let's say sys out, let's say after property set called, okay, and here if this method is getting called, I can call my init method right here, right? I can copy this init method and paste it right here, and I can just call it directly, right? So it will not get me any null pointer exception. Let's see, if it is happening, I'll go to my app.java, run this. And there you go. Teacher is initializing. Then the after property set method called. Okay. Then the init. Now the init invoked. Now I can see the init invoked, but there is a this line is I don't have to write now because I have not used the post construct annotation. The init is invoked through the property set. I just called it directly here because I know this method will be called before the bean will be delivered to me. Okay. So I'll go to app.java, and if I'll run this, you can see the flow right now. Okay, teacher is initializing, after property set called, then your API method, you are calling it right over here. So before this method is getting called, teach method, the teacher class bean we are getting. Before that, the property set method is getting called. Now here is my question. My question is, now if I'll go to the teacher.java, let's say if you have a after property set method, let's say this is the method, simple method you have. It does not do anything. It's just say after property set called. And let's say you have a init method also. Okay. And you are having the post construct here. Okay. Now what will happen? Which method will be called first? This method will be called first or this method will be called first. Question, guys, this question I have seen in the where like they will give you some written test, right? And I myself has done this kind of thing also, because I've seen this a lot right now, because the goal is to create confusion. Now you see like what is happening inside this class. The teacher component has two lifecycle method. One is called PostConstruct. You know that this method will be called just after the object get created, right? And the dependency gets set. And also this interface, this class implements this interface called InitializingBean, which is a Spring way of calling the property set method, and that's how you have the afterPropertyset method right here as well. So this method will be called first, or the PostConstruct method will be called first. Any idea? Anybody done this experiment before? Any idea, guys? I just want some answer from you guys. Aditi, answer. Anusha.
Yeah, but I will guess.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
After property set.
After property set, because it's the Spring one, right? And this is the Java one. Let's see what it is going to be, guys. It really doesn't matter. This will just create confusion, so make sure that you just at least do it once so that you have some kind of idea. See, teacher is initializing first after property set method called, then why that other method did not get called. Can I go to teacher, PostConstruct, Control S. This is PostConstruct. I think PostConstruct method. Okay, I think I don't have this. Okay, I have uncommented this one. I'll go here, run this, and there you go. You can see first PostConstruct, then after property set, right? This is the order of execution. Okay, now, okay, forget about this, guys. Don't think much about it. I'm just telling you just because you should be aware, because my goal is something that I have missed in my previous sessions, just to let you guys know about it. Now let's say I don't have the PostConstruct. Okay, I'm removing it. Let's say maybe what I want to do. Okay, let me just remove it. Okay, and also I don't want to use the after property set, so let me just remove that as well. So I'll comment this one as well. Okay, implement InitializingBean. I comment it. This overriding also I don't have to do. I will comment it. Okay, now tell me, is there any other way I can call this method, init method, when the bean will be created, when the teacher bean will be created? If I want this init method to be called, is there any other way you can achieve it? Like you can make sure, like when the teacher bean will be created, the init method will be invoked right after the property set happen, or right after the dependency injection happens. Any other way, guys? Anybody who can recall?
Can we call that init method inside the constructor, Abhilash?
Init method, see, if you are not going with the Spring way, basically that's how the thing has been done. Like init method should be called inside a constructor, but there is some reason why, like without a constructor, we should create a method and make it a init method. There is some reason. I'll just show you like those reasons like in our follow-up sessions. Obviously we'll be coming into that, but yeah, we can call it obviously over here, and if I'll call it over here, there will not be any problem. Like obviously the init will be invoked, because whenever the constructor will be created, the init will be invoked, and that's how the things would have been done in many of the projects. But yeah, if you're using Spring, like good way to go with this particular method. Okay, and use the lifecycle like annotation like this, PostConstruct, or make it InitializingBean. As I said, making it implement InitializingBean. If your class implements InitializingBean, is make it tightly coupled with Spring. Okay, so that's why better way to go with this is PostConstruct. But there is another way. Okay, and that way is like you don't create your sorry.
Should I say?
Yeah. Go ahead, Manish.
So I believe if we can create an app config class and then actually we annotate that class with bean create one method and
exactly
annotate with bean, then that way actually it can be resolved.
Exactly. And this way, I will just use your way, Manish. I have committed the add component annotation.
One more thing actually I wanted to say, the way actually you have explained, right, it simply means that the JVM is getting priority, because of which, actually because you already said that post-construct annotation is being used by Java X, right? So first servlet container will be invoked, because of which actually PostConstruct annotation was getting invoked first, and then the lifecycle method.
Yes,
That
yes.
was my understanding.
Exactly.
Maybe
So it's
wrong.
basically the way, like there is, I'll just go with like, I'll just go to Bean factory post processor and Bean post processor later. And then I'll tell you like, how this annotations post construct method, how it is getting called, how that annotation works. Then you can understand like, okay, the JVM is calling in this order. So yeah, obviously this is like the things which is related to JVM and the way it is making the callback. I don't know if my recharge did not went through or something. It is saying the free meeting will be end in 10 minutes. Looks like the Zoom Pro has been expired or something. But anyhow, guys, if the meeting got over, we will start a new meeting in 10 minutes, right? And we'll go for another half an hour. I'm sorry about this. Whatever happened, I feel like, the recharge or didn't go through. That's why it's not allowing me to go for more than 40 minutes, I believe. But yeah, before we go for that, before we restart our meeting, what we can do, let's just quickly do this. Let's say public, and we have we want to create the teacher bean, right? So just do teacher, and just do teacher, and I will just go with return new teacher. Make sure that all your beans should be public in nature. And here you can just give a bean annotation, but if you go inside this bean annotation, guys, now you can see here you have this auto candidate init method. See, the default is obviously not set, and also you also have your destroy method here. So you can also give init method right here as well, like this init method, and just write whatever your method name. I think my method name is init. This is init, right? So let's see that if it is getting called, I'll go to app app config and run this, and see the teacher is initializing and the API method is getting called. That means my init method has been successfully called. That's how the subject is getting initialized. If I will do this, and if I'll run this, you can see this line over here. But the post construct is already commented out. So this line makes sure that my init method is getting invoked, and my init method is getting invoked through the bean annotation that we have, and this init method that we have mentioned over here. Okay. So one more question will be, let's quickly do that. One more question will be, like, if in your class, let's say if you have this initializing bean, can I do this? And if I have the initializing bean, and if I have this, and we have the afterPropertyset, we have a post construct annotation, and let's say like I have another method, public void another init. Okay, let's say this init method, this is a simple method, sysout inside another init method. Okay, now let's say this method, I have it over here, app config, put it over here. Now just tell me, like, now I'm creating the bean of the teacher. I have an init method defined here, which is called another init. So this method is defined. There is a post construct annotation, and there is also the afterPropertyset over here. So which one will be called first? So this one will be called first, we know, and then the afterProperties will be called, and then at last the another init will be invoked. So let's see the order, because this order sometime in the mock, like in the written interview, they ask this thing. So yeah, it is the same way. Post construct, afterPropertyset, then inside another init method. So post construct will take the first priority, then the afterPropertyset, and then basically this one, init method, right? Obviously, I feel this is making sense. So can everyone confirm, please, if this makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, Shamash.
perfect. So yeah.
I had in doubt actually, like when will be that callback function will be called, like aware?
Our, right, will go inside that widget. That's why I have not included our here. Once we understand this init, I will involve two more components called bean factory post processor, bean post processor. Once we see that flow, we'll bring in our and we'll see the flow. Okay, so for now I just completely remove hour from my bean lifecycle. That's why, so when somebody asks you the bean lifecycle, there are so many components involved, and this is not going to be possible to explain everything in one day, right? That's why I'm picking one component, explaining it, then we'll bring everything together. Okay, so we just have patience, we'll go into that. Okay, but it will here only, before the bean will be created, the hour will come before it only, Vijay. So your understanding is correct. So with this process, there will some place the hour is going to be called. So be very sure about it. So these days I'm noticing people are giving so much priority to, like, how it is getting created, how that is getting called. Even though you as a developer is not going to use it, still, there will be a lot of questions will be asked in this topic. Okay, so yeah, so before we go for the next one, before I go for the bean post processor and bean factory post processor, let's just restart our meeting. So I'm just dropping my call, guys. Let's just join again. So before we get to the next topic, I just want to quickly talk about the destroy method as well. Okay, so you guys know, like, inside the teacher right now, we have an init method. This method will be called, okay, let everyone join and make sure that you guys are on mute. Yeah, so what I'm asking you guys to learn right now is that if you are talking about a teacher class, the teacher is a bean. So once the teacher constructor get in,
Have you started the recording?
Zoom recording I have not started. Anyhow, it is just getting recorded to my local file, not recorded to the cloud. So that's why let it be. I will, I'm recording through the Camtasia, so it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to ask you guys, like, let's say I have this bean called teacher, and you know that the bean will be initialized, and after the bean will be initialized, then the dependency injection will be happen. Then the PostConstruct method will be called, which will do the afterPropertyset thing, and the bean will be created and will go to the container. Now tell me, guys, if I want to, do some operation before the bean get destroyed, okay, because let's say this is a bean, and this bean is basically a heavy lifting bean, like it's does some operation with the file, or it does some operation with the database, and in my post construct method I'm doing some initialization stuff. Let's say right now in my code here I have initialized a list, but here I can write my database initialization code, my file system initialization code, and if I'm initializing any database, file system, queue, or any kind of initialization code, I can do over here before my bean get created, like before my bean goes to the container. If I do it over here, then obviously there will be a lot of memory I'm acquiring, and what I'm planning to do before my teacher bean get destroyed, I want to free up those resources. So I want to call a method. Let's say there is a, let me just remove this another init right now. It's not needed. And this after property set also, let me just remove it. It is not needed. So this is just for your understanding. So I'm removing everything. I have just one post construct method, and this is the best way to go for it whenever the initialization happens. You guys know about it. So now let's say, I have a method, and this is called, let's say, let me just, make it full screen. And let's say I have a method called public void, and this destroy method, let's say I'm just printing it inside destroy, right? So let's say this destroy method I want to call when my bean is going to get destroyed. Now you know that bean has went through a life cycle. The bean went through this phase, then this phase, then this phase, then goes into the container. Now what I want, when my bean will vanish, when my bean will go out of the context, at that time I want to run my destroy method, and I want to make sure to free off all my memories, or all my memory space that I have acquired through the bean. If there is any file it is operating with, or any database connection it is operating with, or any kind of physical memory connection it is acquiring, I want to close up those things. So like the post construct, what it helped me to set up those connections, I want to make sure when the bean get destroyed, I will just free off all those resources by calling this destroy method. Let's say here I'm writing some logic to free off or to free the memory resources or something. Okay, this destroy method I want to call when the bean is going to get destroyed. So for the question is when the bean will be destroyed. Can somebody tell me when does this bean will be destroyed? When do you think this bean will be destroyed? Anyone?
When container got destroyed.
When container get destroyed, right? How can we destroy the container? When the container get destroyed, how can I destroy the container?
So you can use the close method in the.
I can use the close method. Is using the close method is a recommended approach?
Register shutdown hooks.
Register shutdown hook, is that a recommended method? If yes, then why?
Because it will intimate to the JVM before shutting down the container.
Okay, so is it a recommended method? Shutdown hook I should use or close I should use?
Shutdown hook, sir.
Okay, let's just go with that. So first of all, one option I have here, I can just do container.close, but the container.close I will not be able to call because I'm using application context reference right now container, and inside this close method is not there. But inside this close method is there. If you go inside, I think inside this also the close method will not be there. Annotation application context. If I'll do control, exactly. So you can see the close method is not here as well. But the close method will be inside generic application context. Here, let me just look for the close method. Close, here also it is not there. Abstract application context, let me go inside that. Okay, this extends to this. Look for the close method. Yeah, it is here, right? And this close method, application context, destroying all the beans and the bean factory. So basically, the close method is here, and obviously it is inside a different class, and this class name is something whatever, like abstract application context, right? Which is basically the super class of annotation config application context. This is the class that we are using in our class. So basically you have two options. If you are doing container.close, you know it will not be possible because inside this application context, if you do control O, the close is not here, right? So what the first option is, you can take the annotation config application context, wrap it over here, put it over here. Then on top of this object, you run the close method. This is the first option. You run the close method here. Okay. And if you run the close method, now your application will be shut down. Okay. Like your container will be gone. Your container will be closed. This is the first option. Second option, you put the annotation context reference directly here, annotation config application context, then just do container.close, right? Like this, container.close. This will go like this. So you can close the container. Any other way? Java 7 way. There is another way in Java 7. You can see if I'll go to my annotation config application context, if I'll go to this class, can I go to that class? Okay. And I think I think if I'll open up the hierarchy, let's just go to the super interface. I don't know where it is. See, now the configurable application context is the super interface of the application context, and it is having closable. Okay, it is basically extending to this interface, closable interface, and closable extends to auto closable. And if a annotation in from Java 7, you know that this annotation or this interface has been introduced, and what they say is if any of your interfaces or any of your classes like application context, if this is implementing an interface called auto closable, like this interface annotation config application context, if I'll put over here control V, okay, this interface, sorry,
try with resources you want to use.
Yeah, try with resources I want to use. So this annotation class internally uses auto closable interface. That means I can wrap it under a try block like this, because this implements auto closable. That's why I'm able to do this. I can put it inside the try method like this, and I can put like this, and I can just like end it over here. Okay, and in this way what I'm doing, I don't have to close the container. The close container, like the close method, will be automatically called once all the code that you have inside this try block. As you guys understand, inside the try block, whatever the code that you have, once all the code has been invoked, automatically the close method will be called, right? You don't have to call it by yourself. So this is also another way if you don't want to close the application context by yourself, right? I hope this is making sense, right? So all the ways that you have seen, this is try with resources. You don't like, this is one of the preferred way I can say, or you can just do it the way that we have done before. You can just put this over here, and you can just do context.close, container.close to make sure your container is closed or it is shutting down. Okay, and when your container shuts down, all the beans will be destroyed. And when all the beans are getting destroyed, you can run the destroy method, and you can go to the teacher class. You can put a annotation called PreDesotry. Okay, so control space PreDesotry annotation, control S. Now if you want to go to the app.java, run this, so you can see what happened here. Error creating the bean name teacher. Okay, because the
that component is
not enabled, right? But I think I have created the bean here, no? So what is the problem? Can I go to the app.java teacher.class? I'm asking for it, and let me run this. Yeah, it is working right now. So anyhow, I can see inside the destroy method, it is getting called whenever the close method is getting called. If you don't close your container, the bean will not be destroyed. If the bean will not be destroyed, the destroy method will not be called. So make sure you are closing the container, and if you are closing the container, the destroy method will be automatically called inside the teacher bean. Whatever method has been annotated with PreDesotry annotation, it will be called. Now, this is not the best way to close the container, as I said. Why? Because imagine you have certain lines of code here. Okay, you have certain lines of code here. And what about some exception occurs here only? Then your flow will go out of this particular block, right? And this close method will not be invoked. And if it will not be invoked, then obviously your container will not be closed and your destroy method will not run. So best thing you can do, you can just use something called, you can just register a hook like this, container dot register shutdown hook. And this shutdown hook will do what? This is not related to Spring. This is related to Java. And what it will do in the JVM, like this is basically register a hook in your JVM, is instruct JVM that, hey JVM, whenever you shut down that time, please, if the container is not closed by that time, please shut down the container as well. And obviously if the container will be shut down, all the bean will go away. And if all the bean will go away, then your destroy method will be called. Whenever your bean will be destroyed, this method will be called. Let's see that if the register shutdown is also works. Let's say, let me run this, and you can see inside destroy method, you can move it to this line also, to the first line or whichever line. So it doesn't matter. This basically registers a hook. If I put it over here, that doesn't mean that I'm shutting down my container here. If I run this, see, still my destroy method is here, but my API method is on top of the destroy method. But here you see, my API method I'm calling at last, but I'm closing this container here. Here I'm not closing, I'm just registering a hook with my JVM, instructing my JVM that whenever like the JVM will shut down, that time it is your responsibility to destroy the container, because I'm not going to close the container by myself. Okay, I hope this is making sense. Can you please confirm if you guys are okay so far?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think we spent more time on this. I was not expecting that this will go this much. But anyhow, before we go for the next one, can you guys confirm me one thing? If I don't want to call the PreDestroy method, is there any other way? If I don't want to call the PreDestroy method like this, any other way? Yeah, DisposableBean, right? So go over here, implements. This is the Spring way, implements DisposableBean. Don't use this way. As I said, this will tightly couple your components with Spring, that's what you don't need, right? After 10 years, your application will be demanding some of the changes and the new framework integration. At that time, it will not be a good thing to do, right? So this is the destroy method that you are overriding. Call your destroy method right here. This will work fine as well. Okay, like this. Control S. Now go to app.java, run this, and there you go. This is your destroy method. Okay, the next thing, another way you can do it. Now if you go to the teacher.java, just go out of this way. Let's say I don't want to use DisposableBean. Right here, let me just remove this code. I can still use this. I can take this destroy method and go to the app config and go to the bean, and right here just use the destroy method and put it over here called destroy, your method name. Then also it will work, right? If I'll go over here, run this, and destroy method is still working. So go ahead right now, implement all three things. This is the assignment for you guys. Just do like a little bit of experiment, and tomorrow that experience will work. Just implements the DisposableBean. Just have a PreDesotry method and also use the destroy method right here and see the execution flow, which one is coming first, which one is coming next. Once you are good with this, then in the next class, I'll introduce you to two more things. One is called Bean Factory Post Processor and one is called Bean Post Processor. And then we'll pull off all these things that we have learned for the last 2-3 sessions, and we will talk about our interface. As Vijay was asking, there were some questions about the bean definitions. I remember maybe from someone, I don't remember, but how the bean factory is coming into the picture. What is the difference between the actual bean object and the bean definition? We'll go into a little more in depth about it in the next class, and we'll bring in all the things together and we'll complete this lifecycle stuff, and I feel you'll be feeling a little more confident. And then once we complete all these things, we'll straight away jump to boot. Okay, and one last thing before we wrap up today's session, just understand here you are registering a shutdown hook because this is a standalone application. In the standalone application, the container closing stuff you are taking care either by calling the register shutdown hook or by calling the container.close method. The developer should have the responsibility or should take the responsibility to shut down the container or to close the container. So make sure that if you're working on a standalone application, the container closing stuff you should be taking care. But if it is a web application or a Spring Boot application, the container close, that operation will be taken care by the container itself or the server itself or the boot application by itself. So you don't have to do that, right? So we'll be soon going into the web application and the boot stuff. So we'll be exploring more at the time. Okay. So all good so far? We can wrap up.